Started this business when I was about 14 years old. Last year's revenue was about 3.5 mil.
And this year?
7.5 mil. Competing companies in the market were about $1,500, and I kind of went, I think I can do that better and cheaper. Sold one on Facebook Marketplace, got $850 for that, and then went, okay, there's people that want these. I went and looked at local processes to manufacture. That was really expensive, it was about $50. So decided that I would go and have a look at China. Figured out I could get the parts for about $5.50 a unit AUD, and then kind of was just going downhill, partying, getting into punch-ons, that sort of stuff. Kind of went, need to kind of get my stuff together. Okay, gonna lock in, do work, can't continue making dumb decisions. I could see that there was traction to scale this up. Was shipping out from a shed that I built at my mum's place. We were scaling pretty quick. I think I was doing maybe one 20-foot container a month. And then I kind of went, okay, now we're in a cash flow issue. I need some guidance. I need an investor.
Why do you think that you got so much traction in those early years, those first few sales, versus lots of other people?
I think so my name is Jameson. I own a company called JB Racks. We build vertical bike racks for cars. Started this business kind of when I was about 14 years old. It was a school project, and then have slowly done the scaling process, just building it up bit by bit.
What revenue did you do last year?
Last year's revenue was about 3.5 mil. Yeah.
And this year?
I think we finished up the year at about 7.5. I'm talking calendar years, not financial.
No, that's good. And where are you going to be next year, do you think?
I think we should go over 20, between 20 to 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you when you started your business?
I was about 14 years old.
How does a 14-year-old even decide to create a bike rack?
So just to finish up riding with one of my mates, and Dad had picked us up and we were coming back, heading home, and had put the bike on a not so well designed bike rack. And the bike rack went over a bump and cracked the frame. A little bit of story is kind of carbon fiber bikes. Basically, if you have a crack in a frame, that bike's no good. And then I went and I started looking for a new kind of bike rack to replace that bike rack. Competing companies in the market were about $1,500, and I kind of went, I think I can do that better and cheaper. So I went through and did about 5 or 6 prototypes for a school project. From there, basically sold one on Facebook Marketplace, and then got $850 for that. And then went, okay, there's people that want these, and then started manufacturing and buying parts.
You created a school project, you went onto Facebook Marketplace. How many sales could you get just through that method? Like you manufacturing it yourself and then selling it through Facebook Marketplace?
Yeah. So basically Facebook Marketplace got me the first sale, and then to scale the process of manufacturing, I went and looked at local processes to manufacture kind of the wheel holder at the top, and it was really expensive. It was about $50 to get it manufactured local. So decided that I would go and have a look at China, and then figured out I could get the parts for about $5.50 a unit AUD. So sold a bike, bought I think it was 20 racks worth of product, and then brought that in, and then got some tips to go and do Google ads. So I did Google ads, set up a pretty basic website, and then started manufacturing them and then selling them.
So many people get to that stage where they're like, I'm going to launch a business. Truthfully, a lot of them are a lot older than 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
Usually it's at 23. Why do you think that you got so much traction in those early years, those first few sales, versus lots of other people?
I think it's based on the value that I was providing to the customer. Basically, competing companies were $1,500, and I was selling for about 800 Australian dollars. And basically, people just looked at it and went, oh, that's a scam. But then you still have a couple of people that are willing to go and buy that. And then you do that, and then people write reviews and they go, oh, the shipping was really fast. The product's pretty good. Customer support worked really well with us because, just one person running the whole show.
Yeah, I totally agree. You can differentiate in so many ways, and lack of differentiation is generally the key reason why nobody gets results. Like you can differentiate through the product features itself, which it doesn't sound like you do. You did back then. It was just similar bike wrap, probably good quality, but you can also differentiate through the acquisition channel. You weren't doing that, it was Google, but you can also differentiate through the offer. And I feel like the offer that you had, it was just a considerably cheaper, similar quality, maybe even a little bit better because you were manufacturing it. You're very hands-on with the manufacturing process. Yes. And that's why it works so well on Google. Yeah, great. That's awesome. So you're 14 years old then. How old are you now?
I'm now 20.
You're now 20. Okay, so you've had 6 years, but realistically, how long have you been like serious about the business, would you say?
Serious about the business, I'd say, is only about 2 years. 2
years. Okay.
2.5 years.
So tell me about the story of like, one, when you're like, I'm going to get serious, and how did you go about that?
So I'm going to go back in time a little bit. So I was at a private school for the first bit, and that's where I did the school project. And then I left that private school due to just some school issues just with peers. Didn't have the best time in school, so left and moved to a public school, and then kind of was just going downhill, partying, getting into punch-ons, that sort of stuff with random people. Yeah, basically just being an Australian teenager in a public school. And then kind of went, okay, need to kind of get my stuff together, and kind of had a falling out with a bunch of people at that school. So decided, okay, going to lock in, do work, can't continue to just keep getting smashed on a Wednesday night and going out and just making dumb decisions. At that time, I was still welding everything together and building the whole business. So I could see that there was traction to scale this up. And then basically went, okay, full-time. All right, that means manufacturing in China, Alibaba, sourcing process. Okay, look, this is the whole product here. Can you build this? Hand-drawn drawings, just, hey, this is what I need. Built that kind of pipeline, got product in, was shipping out from a shed that I built at my mum's place, and then delivering through FedEx, and then went, okay, need a 3PL. And then we were scaling pretty quick. I think I was doing maybe 1 20-foot container a month, and basically went, okay, this process is going big. And then I kind of went, okay, now we're in a cash flow issue. I need some guidance. I need an investor. And that's kind of where I joined Daily Mentor to come in and get some guidance. I'd had a couple of people that were offering some money for decent sized percentages of the business.
Full disclosure for everyone listening, I ended up investing in you. I remember Casey, who was running Daily Mentor at the time, he was like, oh, you've got to see this kid. Like, he's just like making so much money and he's so young. And I jumped on a call with you, and the hustle was just like, I was kind of blown away by the hustle. You're just like, I want to do this. I want to do this. You had to, you're definitely naive, but so was I in the early stages. You're like, I'm going to do this. We're going to be $100 million company in like 2 years. I was like, okay. And then apparently you're getting offers, and they were just like really bad. They were trying to take advantage of you from a young age. Would you agree?
I would say so. Yeah. But also being 18, you can't really go to a bank to get a loan or do anything like that.
So I'm the idiot. No, obviously not. It's worked out incredibly well because you're growing so fast, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
So why did you end up deciding that you actually need further guidance?
Well, I think in the early days when it's just you and you're just fighting by yourself, you're kind of always doubting what you're doing, and you don't know that all the questions that you have, everyone else has those same questions, and everyone else is coming to the same conclusions, and you can probably do it by yourself. But it's nice to be around people that have done it and have forged that pathway in front of you. And I think probably when I was looking for an investor, I was just looking for someone who could go, hey, look, this is what you got to do. You got to do this, 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 and this. But no one knows exactly what you've got to do because no one's built your business exactly. They've all built businesses in the same space. They just haven't built businesses that are exactly the same product that you're selling, the same challenges that you're sort of going through. They've got similar stuff like supply chain and media buying and that sort of stuff. But I think when you're naive and in those early days, you think that that person's just going to be that golden leaf that comes in and fixes everything and all your problems go away.
Can you tell us one of the stories about Daily Mentor, something that you learnt from it? Maybe it's from your favorite mentor or from someone else.
Well, I'm not here to pick favourites, Davey. Can't
You can pick
favourites. No. I'd say in the early days, really understanding MER and figuring out the proper profitability of the business and, where stuff really sat. Mentors really hone that in, and being young, you just kind of look and you just go, oh, I've got all this money coming in. Having people push you to go, okay, make sure your accountants are doing all of the figures and everything's, all the ducks are in a row.
Yeah. Can you remember a time when your business was like just chaotic and you're like, this probably isn't worth it?
I think if you're not feeling that every 4 months, then something's wrong.
That's true. That's true. How do you get yourself out of those periods? Because you can't stay in that constant threat, right?
I think just keep pushing along and also having stuff outside of the business to do. So for me, I like to go mountain biking and surfing. So going out for a surf and just clearing your head and then just going, you're still young. If everything goes to shit, it's okay. And, you can just rebuild and go again, You can move back in with your parents. You can go and get a normal job and then start again. You can do that and looking at it from that aspect.
What's your number one tip or hack for like an e-com brand? Let's say that they're doing $1 million. What's something that you've implemented that gave you an instant return on investment?
I would say doubling the content production that you're doing is massive. For us, we do all of our content in-house. We have Talia, who edits all of our UGC content and does all of our shoots as well and works with all of our creators. And that's just been a massive unlock to get all of that content in. And that could just be working with agencies, or if you're selling clothes, just seeding out to lots of UGC creators and just getting a lot of content in and trying a lot of different stuff.
Tell me how you've structured your content team and how you can stay on top of that creative output. One, in terms of are you doing all the send outs? Run me through how you've structured it.
So structure at the moment is we have Talia, and she basically will deal with all of the creators that
What's her title?
You
don't? Okay.
Don't really have titles. Head of content production. Yep. So basically she'll manage all of our Instagram messages that we have coming in, because we do get UGC content creators. Sorry. We get UGC content creators that will reach out to us wanting to do content with us, and then it's vetting them and figuring out whether they're going to be a good fit to work with us. And then setting up, product going out to that creator. And then if the creator's good, then going and basically doing a in-person shoot with that creator and then bring that content back and then editing all of that. And that's kind of done under that one role.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I think that has impressed me most about you is your real commitment to both product but also supply chain.
Yeah.
Because if we think about how you've differentiated your product is cheaper than everyone else. So you need to find ways to manufacture it and stay on top of that quality control. Otherwise, you're selling an inferior product, which yours definitely isn't.
Yeah.
Run me through your advice for a founder that's listening that probably already has a business and they're just like, I don't think my product's that good. I don't even know how China works. What's your advice for someone like that to get on top of it?
Yeah. Basically, I'd say book a ticket straight away, go straight to China and meet with your top 3 suppliers pretty much. Then I would start opening the conversation of, how can you guys help us? I think if you're basically buying a standard off the shelf sort of product and you've just found it in China and you're just kind of drop shipping it or buying containers of a standard thing that you've seen at a trade fair, start to look for ways to kind of differentiate that product and, look, okay, well, where can I save costs? Can I hire an engineer, pay them, 20 grand to come in and kind of differentiate the product, make some cost savings on a packaging perspective? And then open the conversation if you've been working with a supplier for, say, 5 years, say you've been doing this for a while, start talking about how can I get payment terms, how can I start to loosen up my cash flow to help with growth, especially if you're looking at a new market, how can I get, 90 days on the water and then, 30 days in in the warehouse, that really affects cash flow, especially if you can pay like final 50 to 70% 30 days after the goods are in, because then it becomes your ops role's job to basically make sure that you're doing just-in-time stock. And then you're selling through, you're making your final payment. And then if you get really good terms, then you can get into a positive cash flow cycle. And then that means that the business can really grow really quick because you've got positive cash flow every month. And then, if you're looking around and you're going, okay, I want to start to trim cash off of the business, then you can start to do that because you have a positive cash flow cycle of just money continuously rolling in.
Yeah. What was your experience in China? What was it like?
China's a very interesting place.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's very fun. Yeah. They definitely like to party.
Yeah.
And they like to put on a show, and they want to, show you their culture and how they do business. And I would say don't do it like Australian culture. Expect that you're going to go run around the bush a bit. You've got to have these dinners. You've got to have those conversations to be able to build that relationship. And if you can do a good job of it, then you have people wanting to, bring you back to China, for special occasions and stuff. I'm turning 21 this year, and like the factory wants me to fly out with my family there, and they're going to put on a massive party there and do all that sort of stuff. So,
did you get a translator when you were over there?
I didn't, but that's because the factory that I am working with has a bunch of people that have lived in the States and speak really fluent English.
So you only got one factory to show you around?
I've done a bunch of different factories, and I've found that most of them can speak pretty fluent English. Cool. And you can get around with a translating app on your phone.
Before we started filming, you talked about the social element of Daily Mentor helping you.
Yes.
Run me through what that actually looks like and how it has actually helped you.
Yeah. So going back a bit to the start, like in those early days of the business, you kind of feel very kind of lost and like it's just you against the world. So having a community of people that are all like-minded and they're all out there pushing for the same goal, which is to have success and be able to have a nice family and set things up and build a business and, be able to work from home, I think is a big thing for a lot of people. Just talking to people that are like-minded. It's just gives a mental lift because you have other people to talk to about the challenges that you're going through. Whereas, if you go and talk to your mum about, I don't know, MER, she's going to be like, what are you talking about?
That's funny.
Yeah.
Can you think of a specific situation within that community, like where someone has told you something and it's helped?
I think there was some wine guys and we were talking about
the neighborhood sellers.
Yeah, I think neighborhood sellers. Like I think we're chatting about just like packaging, and then we're just talking about like, I think maybe the packaging was being done here, and then we're talking about if you did it in China and how much you could save by doing that. So that's just like a brainstorming thing. We're just sitting around having a couple of beers at a meetup, and then it's just you start the conversation of just like, oh, I've got this problem. I don't know how to save this like cost and this cost, and then you look at it and you go, oh, okay, you could maybe do this slightly different or that slightly different, and it's just opening your mind to different opportunities. And I think like also like I found like staff have had like great opportunities. Like they might do a little bit of side marketing and then someone comes up and they want to ask you a question and then they can help them out like with a little bit of side stuff. So it's just being able to pass a little bit on and that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah. So as I've said multiple times, like your price is your differentiator. What are some other tips for people that want to do something similar so that they can spend more money on ads and make more profit?
Just trying to minimize your cubic size of your parcel, especially in the postal system. And also your weight, especially if you sell a bigger item that's, up above 20 kilos, then you can't ship with AusPost. So trying to get that cubic down, but then also splitting out the parcels because weight is way more expensive than cubic size. So if you have a bigger box that's smaller cubic, but it weighs over 25, then you want to cut that box in half if you can and then get the customer to do the final assembly.
So run me through that process though, because plenty of people have gone to their supplier and said, hey, shrink the packaging, like make it cheaper for us to ship. And then they probably go, no, we're doing it as best as possible.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
So then I would go and hire a packaging expert.
Yep.
And I'd also hire an engineer and get them to look at the product and how it's packed and get them to redesign the packaging and look at how you can get as much saving as possible.
How do you find a packaging expert or an engineer?
For me, engineering, I've just hired through Seek, but also like Upwork and stuff, you can hire people on there. I would go on the high end. I would pay someone $50 an hour to $80 an hour to go and do the job because they're going to get it done and they're going to do it in an efficient amount of time. They're not going to mess you around. Or I'd go on Google and look in your local sort of area.
Do you think that having someone in China makes sense in that area, or is it more so you kind of teaming up over here to make sure that they're doing everything right over there? Like, do you want the engineer to be over there so that they can go to the factory and be like, no, we can do this better? Because realistically, if they're a big enough factory, they probably have some engineers there.
If you're relying on the engineers in China, I'd say that's okay when you're sub 2 million and you're not shipping a massive volume of product. When you go over 2 to 3 sort of range and you're going up towards 5, I would say it's worth hiring an engineer and bringing them in and paying for them to go to China, do QC in the factory, see if the factory's at the level that you need, and getting them really hands-on the product and understanding what your business is.
So the past 12 months, you've grown from 2 million to 7 million. Imagine there's been some learning experiences in terms of hiring, agencies, those kind of things. What's one of the main things that you learn?
Yeah, well, agency kind of experiences has been up and down, like kind of the first, I reckon, second or third call with Daily Mentor with you, and I think it was Robbie. I was talking about an agency that was kind of underperforming and you guys were pretty blunt, just like, get rid of them. We can teach you how to do all of this stuff. And you guys were right. Like, you kind of, agencies build up Meta to be like some difficult, really hard sort of tool, but it's not. You just kind of get some creative, chuck it in there, go broad, and then let it run and, you know, measure the performance of that creative and then cut it and add in new content and make sure you're providing enough content to it. So, yeah, some really good guidance by you guys to kind of get rid of the agencies. So, yeah, would recommend. Because
you're obviously young, making money, you're partying. What do you think the main misconception of those people that maybe haven't started a business yet, when you say you've done millions in sales, what do you think that they get wrong about your life?
I think people always look at headline figures as money into your pocket. They don't look at it as figures that you get to keep. Me personally, I'm quite frugal. I don't really like to go and flaunt money around, but that's just Australia. Like, if you do that, you're going to get frowned upon because we have really big tall poppy syndrome here. So, yeah, like, I just kind of will say that I have a business, but I think that just goes over the top of a lot of people's head.
Did you inspire your friends to start businesses?
I don't think I've inspired anyone that wasn't already doing something. Like, I might have been able to give them some tips and direct them. But maybe I inspired some people that had done some drop shipping in the past to then go and have another go that it didn't go as well. And then they spent all the money and then they had nothing and they went, okay, let's go and have another go. Yeah, like one of my mates is doing quite well. He's doing kind of some AI generation, lead cool stuff and, yeah, doing quite well with that.
Well, I think you would have inspired a fair few younger people and I think you would have inspired a fair few people after this video to really look at supply chain and their operations of their business, because I think that's your specialty.
Yeah. What I'd say is it might seem like it's hard, but me, when I was 14, I was sitting on a couch and I had no idea where to start. I just kind of went, okay, let's just get going. First thing was, okay, the product, need to build that and then build out from there. Everything comes bit by bit, and that's the challenge. If you knew everything, then you know, we wouldn't be sitting here having a chat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm proud to be here having a chat and I'll be keep rooting for you. You'll smash it. I have no doubt.
Thank you.